All right, today we're cracking open the ancient pages of the Talmud for a really fascinating intellectual mystery. We've got a case where one of history's greatest legal minds seems to completely contradict, well, himself. So let's jump right into our Talmudic detective story.
So, what's our game plan? We're going to start with a pretty simple dispute, then uncover a really puzzling contradiction. After that, we'll learn the rules of ancient logic we need to solve it, face a brand new twist, and finally, get to the brilliant resolution.
Okay, so our investigation kicks off with a very specific and sacred item, the daily Griddle-Cake offering that the high priest brought in the temple. Now this sounds pretty straightforward, but trust me, it's hiding a really deep legal question.
And here's the heart of the problem. This special cake was made from a specific amount of flour. So what happens if you take that flour and you split it into two different bowls before you dedicate it? Is that offering still valid? Is it still considered holy?
Well, on this very question, two great sages just don't see eye to eye. Rabbi Yohanan is firm, absolutely not. You can't split it. He says the sanctity requires the whole measure to be together. But Rabbi Elazar, who's really our main character today, he has a different take. He argues, pretty logically, that since the cake is sacrificed in two parts, half in the morning, half in the afternoon, then of course it can be sanctified in two parts. Makes a lot of sense, right?
Now, Rabbi Elazar's logic seems totally solid, but just as soon as we start to accept his reasoning, the text throws us a massive curveball, and this introduces the central mystery of our whole case. It turns out that, in a totally different discussion, this one about sacrificial blood being collected in two separate vessels, Rabbi Elazar argues the exact opposite. He says that blood is not sanctified in halves. To be holy, the full measure has to be collected in a single vessel. And there it is, our puzzle. How can the same brilliant mind argue yes for the griddle-cake, but no for the blood? I mean, it seems like a blatant contradiction. And this isn't just some academic question, For any logical system to work, it has to be consistent. So is he just being inconsistent, or is there some deeper logic at play here that we're not seeing yet?
To solve this, we've got to get a handle on a key tool in the Talmud's analytical toolkit. It's a specific kind of reasoning called a gezerah shava, which is basically a form of ritual derivation.
So what is it? It's basically the principle of applying a known law to a new but similar situation. You can think of it like legal precedent in a modern courtroom. You find a clear link between two cases, and you figure the same rule should probably apply. But, and this is a big but, there are super strict rules about when you're allowed to do this, mostly to prevent people from making bad comparisons.
And this right here gives us our first big clue. Rabbi Elazar operates on a really strict principle. You can only compare like with like. You can derive a rule for one meal offering from another meal offering. That's fine, but you absolutely cannot take a rule from a completely different category, like a blood offering, and apply it to a meal offering. It's all about keeping the logic clean.
And just like that, the contradiction seems to just disappear. The different rules are okay because they apply to fundamentally different categories of things. It's a great reminder that sometimes the solution isn't in the rule itself, but in how we define the categories. Case closed. Or is it?
Right when we think we've got it all figured out, the Talmud does what it does best. It pushes back. It introduces a new piece of evidence that challenges the very rule we just used to solve the puzzle. The text itself raises the objection, basically asking, hold on a second, are we sure Rabbi Elazar is even consistent within the same category? And then it brings up this new, really complex scenario involving the shewbread, those 12 loaves that were placed on the temple's golden table every week.
Okay, let's break this down. Picture this, the Sabbath ends, and it's time to take the old shewbread off the table. Rabbi Elazar says that the moment that time arrives, it's legally considered removed, even if nobody has actually touched it. Now what if, at that exact instant, the bread itself breaks and becomes invalid? You'd think the whole offering is a wash, but Rabbi Elazar rules that the frankincense that came with the bread is still valid and has to be offered.
This just throws us right back into the mystery and creates a new contradiction. See, with any other meal offering, if part of the flour gets lost before the priest takes out that sacred handful to burn, the whole offering is invalid. So why is the shewbread different? Why would Rabbi Elazar let the frankincense be offered when the bread it came with is ruined? It looks like he's breaking his own rule about comparing one meal offering to another.
So now the case seems more confusing than ever, but the final resolution is so elegant. It all hinges on this subtle but absolutely profound distinction. It's the one tiny detail that makes everything fall perfectly into place.
Okay, so here's the crucial point. In a regular meal offering, the part that gets burned on the altar, the handful, is just an anonymous part of a big pile of flour. It's nothing special until the priest actually scoops it out. But with the shewbread, the part to be offered, the frankincense, was never mixed in with the bread. It was always separate, placed in its own distinct bowls right from the get-go. It was designated. This prior designation that gives the frankincense its own independent legal standing. It isn't just an accessory to the bread, it's a distinct part of the offering from the very start. So, even if the bread goes bad, the frankincense is still fine. This idea doesn't just solve our puzzle and prove Rabbi Elazar as being perfectly consistent, it highlights a principle you see everywhere, from legal contracts to computer code, where the initial status of one part can determine its fate, no matter what happens to the whole.
The Talmud raises one last, super technical objection, trying to compare this situation to another debated case. But it's dismissed pretty quickly by showing that Rabbi Elazar's opinion here just aligns with one side of that already known legal debate. So, far from being another contradiction, it's actually more proof of his incredible consistency. And with that, the case is officially closed.
And this whole journey leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This entire complex legal puzzle, with all of its incredible twists and turns, really just hinged on one tiny detail, the difference between something being designated versus undesignated. It's a powerful reminder that in logic, in law, and, in life, sometimes the smallest distinction can change the entire picture.